They're saying that your rights come not from the king, not from the government. Your rights come from God. And furthermore, they can't be taken away from you. They're inalienable.
Every group, blacks, women, gays, everybody looks to the Declaration as a way of saying, we are Americans too. So the Declaration is the American creed.
And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
You cannot help but be stirred when you read those words. And you feel the excitement of being on the cusp of something so profound. We can be free.
September 1776. Plum Martin is one of 500 men standing guard against the British at Kips Bay, New York.
The first thing that saluted our eyes was all 4 ships at anchor, within musket shot of us. The Phoenix. I could read her name as distinctly as though I was directly underneath her stern.
The assault begins. September 1776. New York City is under fire. In 1 hour, 2,500 British cannonballs smashed the rebel defenses. "4,000 British troops storm Manhattan. A British redcoat has on average 6 times more combat experience than a rebel recruit.
Get back in your lines!
Washington's army collapses.
Hold the line, men!
They retreat along an ancient Native American path that will become Broadway. On September 20th, British-occupied New York burns. No one knows who starts the fire, but over 2 days, it destroys a quarter of the city.
It gives you a sense of the people who wanted to be free, how much they were willing to endure. The city being burned, the city being occupied, gives you a sense of how much they wanted freedom.
Driven into the wilderness, the rebels attempt to regain the initiative by using guerrilla tactics. General John Burgoyne has orders to engage the rebels as part of Britain's plan to separate radical New England from the rest of America. But his men soon become targets for rebel sharpshooters. They use new controversial methods and have more than just the terrain on their side. They are armed with long rifles. Lightweight, with a slender barrel at least 40 inches long, they fire a .50 caliber shot a ½ inch wide. Based on a German hunting weapon, the guns have a unique innovation. Grooves inside the barrel that spin the shot, stabilizing it, giving it deadly accuracy. Armed with this rifle, a Patriot marksman can hit a target 250 yards away, twice the range of the British muskets. The 2 armies meet near Saratoga. Here, the rebels break the rules of 18th century warfare and start targeting British officers. The plan, leave the foot soldiers leaderless.
Your officers tended to be your most educated guy. They understood the communications line. They understood exactly what the orders were. They were the source of trying to get something done on a battle space.
In Britain's 53rd Regiment, all but one of its 11 officers are killed or wounded. The British are forced on the defensive. They regroup under General Simon Fraser, who leads the counterattack. Daniel Morgan, commander of the sharpshooters, acts fast.
I want you to shimmy on up that tree and take out the redcoat on his high horse.
His best marksman is an illiterate frontiersman from Ireland, Tim Murphy. His first shot misses.
This left.
The second skims Fraser's horse.
Too high. Reload. Come on. Take him out.
The third shot is fatal.
You could argue that whoever fired the bullet that took out Simon Fraser did as much as any founding father to establish American independence.
Without leadership, the British lose 1,000 men. Twice as many as the rebels. On the 17th of October, 1777, General Burgoynes surrenders. It's a turning point. The victory persuades Britain's greatest rival, France, to join the war on America's side. The French Navy will now force the British to fight a war on two fronts, land and sea. 1778, the camp at Valley Forge. Washington and his new European allies are preparing to counter the ongoing British onslaught. After surviving an outbreak of smallpox, the Americans welcome a new recruit that Washington hopes will help win the war. Baron von Steuben is an ex-Prussian army officer, an elite soldier whose career is said to have been ruined by his homosexuality. Washington makes him one of the most powerful men in his command.
Washington was a genius in taking people in who didn't seem like they could achieve great things, but under him, they rose to the challenge, they rose to the occasion. And that's what great leaders do.
Von Steuben's task, reinvent the demoralized rebel army so they can take on the British in open battle.
Our arms are in horrible condition, covered with rust. Our men are literally naked, some to the fullest extent of the word.
Von Steuben starts by drilling discipline into Washington's recruits. He finds the men unlike any he has trained before.
The genius of this nation is not in the least to be compared with that of the Prussians or Austrians or French. You say to your soldier, do this, and he does it. But here, I'm obliged to say, this is the reason why you ought to do that, and then he does it.
Von Steuben brings order, discipline, and hygiene to Valley Forge. He moves latrines away from living quarters, rebuilds the kitchens on the opposite side of the camp, and organizes housing according to regiments and companies. He also writes a training manual, parts of which are still used by the US military today. Von Steuben drills European battle tactics into an elite corps of 100 men. Each will train 100 more. He also instructs them in a new and deadly weapon. The bayonet will revolutionize how the rebels fight. Simply adding a dagger to a rifle makes close hand-to-hand combat possible without reloading. But perhaps most important of all, von Steuben inspires the rebels with a new spirit.
You know, we can talk about weapons and how certain weapons change the face of warfare, which is absolutely true. But the greatest weapon that you could ever have is right up here.
Men like Plum Martin will leave Valley Forge highly skilled killers. October 1781, 6 years into a war the British thought would last 6 months, the American Revolution comes to a head at Yorktown, Virginia. In trenches around the fortified city, Plum Martin, now a sergeant, waits with 8,000 other rebel soldiers for the signal to attack. Washington's army has reinvented itself. With sharpshooters, with training, discipline, and new weapons. What remains of the British army is under siege in Yorktown. Trapped in the city, the Redcoats wait for reinforcements. But back in Britain, the war is unpopular and costing far too much money.
This is a case of hanging on in the face of the British actions long enough to where the British literally would grow weary of this and realize that it was endless.
This is Washington's chance to end the war with one decisive blow.
He committed to this idea of being able to stand on your own. See, America is a dream, and the only way to go get that dream is to show up and bring your very best to that moment and not stop until you bring that dream into existence.
Plum Martin is to be one of the first over the top.
Godspeed.
How you doing, old friend? Good. How are you?
Gonna check it out.
Behind Yorktown's defenses, 9,000 battle-hardened British troops are waiting. They're protected by a series of outlying cannon forts called redoubts. By October 14th, just 2 remain. If they're captured and their guns turned on Yorktown, the British will be forced to surrender.
Let's look up there.
It's time. All the batteries in our line lay silent. We lay anxiously waiting for the signal.
The rebels race 100 yards to the British lines under fire and a hail of hand grenades. A force of 400 breaks through and storms the British fort. Fighting in close combat with bayonets, they beat the Redcoats back.
Immediately after the fighting had ceased, I went out to see what had become of my wounded friend. He was dead.
34 of Martin's comrades lie dead or wounded. But they breached Yorktown's defenses. 2 days later, the British surrender and begin negotiations for peace. After 6 long years of struggle, the rebels have achieved the impossible. The United States is the only country to win independence from the British in war. On April 30th, 1789, Washington is inaugurated first President of the United States of America under the new Constitution.